The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Thank you all for coming this morning, and thank you to all of you many people who attended the week's retreat. I sat in on some of the discussions, and I was really impressed with the depth and seriousness of the training that you all talked about and what's going on in your own life. So thank you very much for coming to the retreat. And thank you, Reverend Master Mayon, for asking me to give the talk today. It's a real honor to do this talk after our memorial for Reverend Master G.U. She died on the 6th of November, 1996, about 2 in the afternoon, as I recall. She was 72. And I'm here because of her. I'm grateful for her limitless teaching, which for me is still going on. I'm still learning from her. I wish I'd been able to learn a little bit more and express my gratitude while she was alive, but life takes as long as it takes. So I'm delighted to do the talk that concludes our Training with Aging retreat. And we talked about acceptance, we talked about faith and trust, we talked about aging with joy, we talked about purpose in life, and we talked about fear and other topics, and all of these talks are online. And many of you shared your perceptions of what aging is like for your own self and your thoughts about your upcoming death, whenever that may be. We talked about shame. We talked about loss. My own thought is that we're very fortunate that our Buddhist teachings begin with birth, disease, old age, and death. So I thought I'd share a little of my own observations regarding birth and death. And first, let me start with the poem that's written on the stupa. The stupa being the memorial that we have for Reverend Master G.U. And in a ceremony such as we did today, we all go out and we circumambulate the stupa 3 times. We offer incense and we recite scriptures. This is what's on one side of the stupa. In other words, engraved or etched on the stupa. I think it's very relevant to the retreat that we're concluding. If life comes, there is only life. If death comes, there is only death. All acceptance is the key that unlocks the gateless gate. And within this place, there is no suffering, no coming, no going, no ceasing, no way. There is only endless training. Appearing here, disappearing there, going in and out, always becoming Buddha. And it's that last sentence that I think is so particularly relevant for our discussions these past few days, which is always becoming Buddha. If I wanted to put what I think of as my own purpose in life into one sentence, I would use that sentence, always becoming Buddha. You were very open, all of our retreatants, in your comments, so I thought I'd try to exhibit the same openness and tell you a little bit about myself. and my qualifications for being here at an aging retreat. I'll be 83 this December, or 31. I always have a choice because Reverend Master G.U. kindly ordained me on my body birthday. So I have two choices when my birthday comes. I don't think I want to do 31 again, and I'm happy with 83. I'm reasonably healthy. I've been a monk for 30 years. I have a hip replacement. I have various fractures. I have some not too serious medical problems, but things that I have to deal with. Before I came, I was a registered nurse for 20 years and had a family, and before that I worked in the theater and did journalism, and now I'm here in this very loving, caring community. So one of the things that some of you express concerns about that I'm very, very fortunate is that I have 22 people around that are going to take care of me as I age and when I die. Since I've been here, I've been intimately involved with the dying process for 5 of our monks. And this has taught me a lot about dying as a Buddhist, and dying as an individual. So, reviewing the major questions that I heard during the discussions, some questions that I asked myself, and some of the answers that I've received. What helps me in accepting aging? And I consider aging, for the purpose of this discussion, to include physical, mental, and spiritual, even though you can't really separate the 3 of them, but there are times where it's helpful to look at one or the other. How can I accept aging and death as a gift and be grateful for it? I heard Reverend Master G.U. say several times, we need to accept everything as a gift. That has been difficult for me, and it is still difficult. And I think it's the way to go. I think if we can accept our bodily condition, our mental condition, our physical condition, whatever life is providing for us as a gift, here and now, in this moment, it really truly gives us the opportunity of a lifetime, because we can make the choice about how we react to what's going on. We are all aging, and death could well be just around the corner. So what better time than now to look at how we perceive dying and death. When I think about the physical aspect, I find that, and some of you during the retreat have talked about this, to focus on what we're able to do. I want to focus on what I'm able to do and say thank you and be grateful. It's so easy, I think particularly when we have physical problems and as we age, to focus on what we cannot do, when really what we need to do is take care of what we cannot do, but also appreciate the memory of what we used to be able to do. An example for me is a few years ago, I realized that my hiking days are over. And I feel fortunate to be able to walk for 20 minutes a day, to walk around the monastery. And I had some disappointment there. And then I thought, but think of all the wonderful places that I hiked to, all the wonderful places that I backpacked to, and all these wonderful memories came up. And I found I was not grieving so much over the fact that I can't hike anymore. And it's my choice. I mean, I would go and start out hiking, but I think it's rather a poor thing to do, given my bones and hips and fractures and etc. So I think that focusing on what we're able to do and expressing our gratitude and maintaining, secondly, maintaining whatever current physical flexibility we have. And also, what neuroscience tells us is that maintaining our physical self also helps to maintain our mental abilities. And there are lots of things we can do to maintain our mental abilities, crossword puzzles and Sudoku, and when I'm out at the Hermitage, I take a jigsaw puzzle with me, and I found that's really helpful because what it does after a while is you begin to, at least for me, see things I hadn't seen, see colors that I hadn't seen, see shapes that I hadn't seen. And both the physical and the mental are important. We want to stick around long enough to take advantage of the time that we have and whatever health we have to truly work on the 3 pure precepts: to cease from evil, to do only good, and to do good for others. Because, why is that so important? Because the 3 pure precepts are the way we clean up our karma. It's the way we purify our heart. And this is, for me, the big need before I die. It's our purpose in life, isn't it? To clean up our karma. To leave this world a better place than when we came. To be kind and compassionate. To be the precepts every day. I used to use the term keep the precepts every day. But a few years ago, what started to come up is that's not enough, Scholastica. Keeping the precepts is not enough. I and we need to be the precepts. So give it some thought. There's a difference. I need to emulate Kanzeon to the extent that I'm able. To be able to see with the eyes of Kanzeon, to be able to use my hands and my body to do what needs to be done. I need to let go of the self, and I need to, each and every day, be the precepts. I think mentally that the biggest challenge for me, and for some of us, according to what you talked about, is to pay attention. Now, most of us, I think, have a little short-term memory. And the short-term memory loss in our daily activities is a very motivating incentive for practicing mindfulness. Someone mentioned getting angry at the little things. So when we pay attention to what we're thinking and we're mindful, we can choose, we can make a choice whether to go with that anger or not. When recollections of our past mistakes and regrets come up, we can make a choice how to react to that. Another part of this magnificent opportunity that aging and death presents to us is looking at our past mistakes and regrets and asking, am I continuing to repeat them? What may I do to make amends on a practical basis and on an internal basis, offering forgiveness for ourselves and others, offering merit. So paying attention, being mindful, I think is part of this grand opportunity that only aging and death presents us with. And I think the focus of our life as we age is our spiritual well-being, regardless of what our body's doing or not doing. And the question that I ask myself is, am I doing what my heart calls me to do? Or am I using old age and infirmity as an excuse for allowing my practice to diminish? Now, there are two ways to look at our practice. There are probably more than that, but two that I think of. One is internally, and one is externally. When I came to the Abbey 30 years ago, I did my formal sitting meditation on a zafu with both legs crossed. I find that hard to believe now, but it was true. That was just my everyday practice. And then it got to the point where I had to kind of modify the crossed legs. And then as the years went by, I went from sitting on a zafu with crossed legs to sitting on a bench. I'm still able to sit on a bench, but I'm not able to sit on a bench as long as our 30-minute or 40-minute meditation periods are. And I'm assuming that at some point I'll switch from a bench to a chair, and at some point I'll switch from a chair to lying on the bed. However, the important thing is to keep my meditation practice going. And I think it's helpful as we age to look at, okay, what part of the day do I have the energy to sit, read, listen to the Dharma, whatever reinforces my practice. I correspond with a congregation member in Eugene, and he wrote to me one time about that the thought had come up to do X number of minutes of meditation and X number of scriptures and et cetera, et cetera. And then a few months later, I got another letter from him saying, maybe doing all of that at the one time is a bit much. And I had written to him after the first letter and said, well, why don't you consider this, that, and the other thing? Because I wanted to encourage him to expand what he saw as his daily practice. But I didn't want him to take on so much that he got discouraged or didn't do any of it. So we have to look at the reality. And for me, a good way of looking at that is to think of the fact that I'm a Buddhist who is aging. I'm not an aging person who happens to be Buddhist. The Buddhism comes first, and the aging comes second. So some points that have helped me to remember this, and that helps me to practice acceptance and joy each aging day, is to recognize today as a grand opportunity. It's the opportunity of our lifetime. We're aging. We know that death is close. And so what we want is to be a Buddhist, to be the precepts, and not worry so much about doing. Probably we have enough in our life about doing. I came across this lovely saying, and I'm sorry I don't remember who said it. It's attributed as a Zen saying, who said, the ideal is to be a business-less person. Not a busy-less, but a business-less person. And I think about that. My business at this point is to do what I can to practice the Dharma. To do what I can to practice the Dharma. So here are some things that I use as reminders. I understand that we're at a 5G society right now, right? That's what it's all about. But I'm happy just to create my own 2G society. Generosity and gratitude. That's what I need to do. Generosity and gratitude. And I don't need to go any faster than that. The second one is patience. To recognize that things take as long as they take. They take as long as they take. And that whatever is arising, physically, mentally, spiritually, it's not going to last forever. And if I can just be patient, put my hands in gassho, and say thank you, things will work out the way they need to work out. I don't have to control my life. I don't have to control my circumstances. Isn't that amazing? That's really different than what I thought in my 20s and 30s. I don't have to control my life. Thirdly, I found that offering merit for everyone, to recognize that when I meditate for everyone. That when I offer merit, I offer merit for everyone, regardless of what unfortunate, we're in a really divisive time right now. I don't have to get caught up in the political divisiveness. I can just offer merit for everyone. There's the first verse that I can remember coming across that had to do with offering merit for everyone. And the Dalai Lama often refers to this. It's a verse by attributed to Shantideva in, I think the title of the book is The Bodhisattva Way of Life. And one translation of it is, as long as space abides, as long as sentient beings abide, until then may I too abide to dispel the miseries of the world. That's what we're here for. Asking for help from when we're living in the world, asking for help from our family, from our friends, from myself as a monk, from other monks. Asking for help and not being afraid of asking for help. And recognize that we have choices. We may not have a choice in what happens, but we have a choice in how we look at it. There's a very lovely book that I found in our own library that I took out to the Hermitage with me. It's by Dr. Jerome Groopman, and it's called The Measure of Our Days. Dr. Groopman is a researcher, a cancer expert, And he tells a story about one of his patients who was describing what it was like to survive in Auschwitz. Now, obviously, there are lots of books about that. There are lots of stories about that. But I was very, very impressed, and I won't read you the whole thing. But what his patient said is that he found that for himself, it was his attitude of mind. That it wasn't what he was doing and what he was forced to do or asked to do. It was his attitude of mind. It was looking at what was happening as an opportunity. I was very impressed with that. I think some of the other things that help are taking refuge, paying attention to how we're filling our minds, what we're reading, what we're listening to, what we're watching. It's very easy, even as a monk in a monastery. I think we all want to know enough about what's happening in the world so that we can offer merit and so that we can be available to help our congregation when they come and ask for opinions or advice. But I also found that as a reader, as someone who likes to be up to date on things, it's very, very easy today with the internet and the radio and newspapers to do more than what we need to do. I'm a great fan of the late Oliver Sacks. And before he died, he sent a letter to the New York Times, and they published it as an op-ed contribution. And they published this in February of 2015. I'm just going to read you a couple paragraphs of what he wrote. What he started out with saying, I've been in reasonably good health, and now I realize that I'm going to die within months because his diagnosis had changed. I feel a sudden, clear focus and perspective. There is no time for anything inessential. I must focus on myself, my work, and my friends. I shall no longer look at NewsHour every night. I shall no longer pay any attention to politics or arguments about global warming. This is not indifference, but detachment. I still care deeply about the Middle East, about global warming, about growing inequality, but these are no longer my business. They belong to the future. I rejoice when I meet gifted young people, even the one who biopsied and diagnosed my metastasis. I feel the future is in good hands. It is the fate of every human being to be a unique individual, to find our own life, to live our own life, and to die our own death. And I think this is what is meant by our Buddhist saying of live fully and die fully, regardless of what school of Buddhism, regardless of what teachings from what school of Buddhism, what comes up is that we're going to die the way we live. So the questions to ask ourselves is, am I doing what my heart calls me to do? And I would like to add a few more things. And one is to accept our fear. We don't become our fear. What we need to do is accept our fear and look at what is it we're fearing. I found for myself in thinking about death and in trying to let go of the fear that I ended up writing my eulogy. I ended up writing my obituary. And I wrote a draft of a farewell letter that I am going to give to the Abbey, to send to my friends, either when I'm dying or after I'm dead. I think we need to be careful as we're aging and as we face death to let go of our perception of what it's like to age and what it's like to die. I find another thing that helps me a great deal are reciting verses. Along with the verse of Shantideva, I found this wonderful verse in the Dalai Lama's book on Advice on Dying. This is attributed to Joseph Goldstein, but it's in the Dalai Lama book. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. I found for myself that having a verse to recite as I'm falling asleep, as I wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep, is very, very helpful. And sometime after I came across that verse and was reciting it, something a little more expansive came to me. And this is what came up for me. May I and all beings be well. May I and all beings be at peace. May I and all beings let go of our sorrow and pain. May I and all beings know generosity and gratitude, kindness, love, and compassion. And reciting that allows me to let go of the focus just on myself and recognize that this is my opportunity to offer merit for all beings, to recognize the oneness. The verse and reaffirming my Bodhisattva vows helps me to let go of my concern about aging and to let go about whatever fear and concern I have about dying. So in closing, I think that the questions that I want to ask myself and that I think it's helpful to ask ourselves frequently, very frequently, is, what is it that I'm holding on to? What is it about myself that needs forgiving? To whom or what needs my gratitude? And of course, on a practical basis, and we talked about this a little bit during the retreat, are my last wishes, my advance directives, all the things that need to be when I'm dead, are they all written out and up to date? And are they where they need to be? I have to say I'm still working on that, but it's coming along. And the last two questions that I find helpful is, what is my purpose in life? And what is my purpose today? And to remember always becoming Buddha. And I think these questions lead to, for me, what at the moment is the final question, is what is it I need to do now, today, in this moment, in order to open my hands and heart at the moment that I'm dying, in the days leading up to my dying, at the moment of my death, what is it I need to do now in order to open my hands and heart and say thank you? So thank you to all of you that came for the retreat. Thank you to all of you, my fellow monks. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha.